Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am glad, actually, to hear for the first time that the majority is interested and willing to consider a supplemental appropriations bill to address the Zika crisis. That does represent some progress because we'd not heard that before today. What I'm concerned about is that, let's use an analogy here. The substitute amendment is proposing to move money from one health crisis to a different health crisis. That's like suggesting that we have two houses burning side by side, and we would use the same hose to try to put out both fires. Does that make any sense? It certainly does not make any sense. Let's take a look closely for a moment at just how dire the pending, looming Zika crisis is. Just yesterday, the CDC said that, released statistics that show us that in Puerto Rico alone, the number of Zika cases are doubling weekly, that we could very quickly be dealing with hundreds of thousands of cases of Zika just in Puerto Rico. On Sunday, when I was preparing for this meeting and looking over the whole issue of Zika and how it affects my home state, which has the most cases in the country and represents one of every 4 cases of Zika that have been diagnosed in the United States. There were 82 cases in the information that had been given to me. Today, when I look down at my notes, we've got 85 cases in Florida. So it is rapidly advancing. And so I can appreciate, and I'm glad that we're all recognizing that this is a crisis, and it's one that we have to head off at the pass. Even Rick Scott, our governor, has declared a state of emergency in February, and this is from someone who decided to remove 9,000 children from our Children's Medical Services program. So you can see that if even Rick Scott understands that there is a health crisis facing our state, then with that record, there certainly must be one. This is a disease that has devastating effects on pregnant women, and we've all seen the heartbreaking images of babies born with microcephaly. Those are strongly believed to be linked to the virus during pregnancy, and now we know that there is a link to sexual activity as well in terms of transmission. Our climate in Florida and our location make us especially susceptible to locally developing similar diseases, particularly mosquito-borne illnesses. And Mr. Bishop pointed out that Georgia is the state right next to us. I mean, our borders, state by state, are purely artificial, and we are rapidly entering not only mosquito season, but a high travel season. And so we are going to see, if we don't address this issue head on, and not rob Peter to pay Paul, as the substitute amendment would do, then we are going to see explosive growth in the diagnoses of this illness, of this disease. Now, we're currently in the middle of a public comment period for a proposal to introduce genetically modified mosquitoes into the Florida Keys. And mosquito control is going to be an integral component of fighting the spread of Zika. But that is just one piece of the total public health puzzle. Again, I want to stress, especially with the number of people that travel from Puerto Rico to Florida, back and forth, and the number of people that we have migrating from Puerto Rico to Florida, with the dire situation that they have and how rapidly it's advancing in Puerto Rico, this is something that we cannot afford to stand on ceremony. Mr. Chairman, it would seem to me that we could adopt Ms. Lowey's amendment, mine, Ms. Lowey's, and Ms. DeLauro's amendment. If there are questions that the majority has of the administration, you can certainly ask them. There's nothing that stops us from adopting the Lowey amendment, getting those questions answered. This is only a full committee markup, and we can get those answers and make modifications going forward if that's necessary. But to suggest that we're going to deal with this looming health crisis that is going to potentially and very likely explode if we don't address it comprehensively and head-on is the height of irresponsibility. And so I urge defeat of the substitute amendment and adoption of the Lowey amendment so that we can make sure we don't end up in an Ebola crisis, and that we don't start or rekindle an Ebola crisis by taking money away from that badly needed attention either. Thank you. I yield back.
Chairman Culberson.
Chairman Rogers, we've got 2 amendments before us. Ms. Lowey's in your